Welcome everyone to my session, From Tunnels to Talent, Technology as a Catalyst for Inclusive Leadership. I will touch some topics today about a bit of starting from my experience. So I will discuss how technology, particularly the digital transformation and the data-driven systems, can serve as a catalyst for inclusive leadership in the construction and specifically in the infrastructure sector, emphasizing how the importance of intentional use of technology can amplify diverse voices and give access to more people to opportunities. I will also share some strategies for inclusive leadership and talent development or discovery, some challenges that the mobility sector is facing in this moment, and something that we have to consider for the future. And this will start from my personal journey and from my perspective, because I guess that's like a living proof of what we can achieve as women in a male-dominated sector like infrastructures. And then there will be a call to action and continued engagement. Thank you for being here and for bringing your curiosity into this conversation. So please collect questions. I'm glad to reply. So today is more than technology or infrastructure itself. It's about people. It's about how the tools that we build and use for our purposes can open new paths, amplify voices, and create the conditions for others to grow. It took me a while to understand that, but now I'm 42, and that's a consideration I want to share with you. The construction and infrastructure sector is undergoing a very profound transformation that's driven by data, enabled by technology that's always improving, and shaped by the choices that we make as leaders. For me, digital transformation is not just about tools, platforms, or technical efficiency that are in any case essential in our work, but it's about redefining how our industry works, who it includes, and what it stands for. Technology, when used with intent, becomes a very powerful catalyst. It makes our projects more sustainable, our sites safer, and our decisions smarter. But more importantly, it can reshape who gets access to these opportunities. In traditionally male-dominated sectors like infrastructure, barriers have not only been physical or technical, they have also been cultural. Data, automation, digital workflows have the power to neutralize the bias, shift the focus from the presence to impact, and value competence, collaboration, and insight over hierarchy and stereotypes. This session is about exactly demonstrating this point of view. So through the lens of infrastructure perspective and through my own professional journey, I want to show how technology can open doors, amplify talents, and enable inclusive leadership in our sector in practice, not as a slogan, but as a measurable outcome. If you truly want to build the future, tunnels, networks, cities, or whatever, we must also build environments where people can grow, where leadership is accessible to everyone, and where innovation reflects this diversity of the world that's serving. That is the transformation that matters, not just the tools. And that's the responsibility we have we carry as leaders. Most of us in this meeting today live on top of infrastructures we never see. Tunnels, foundations, systems that keep our cities standing. I spent most of my professional journey for underground projects. I started with Dome metro stations when I was quite young, and for places that are invisible but absolutely essential. They connect everything. And that's where I understood something really essential. The world is held together by what we don't see. And that's not only this, it's just like many of the people who make it work. The construction industry is going through a major transformation. Data, digitalization, sustainability, AI, a lot of sessions today are about AI. But for a long time, this transformation was only a technical transformation. So what happened? The processes changed, the tools changed, the technology evolved, but power structures did not. And inclusion, diversity, and leadership were treated as side topics, not as the core system. And that's indeed where the real problem begins. So technology without inclusion is just an incomplete system. It's not a complete story. I share my profile, my story, not to talk about myself, but because my experience stands as a living proof that technology is a catalyst for inclusive leadership. I am an engineer, an expat, I am a mother, a mentor, and a digital innovator. I worked on tunnels, roads, bridges, sewer systems, mobility projects on larger scale, mainly, in Italy, in Qatar, and in Belgium. And my life was really technical, very technical. I had only numbers in my head, always thinking about the numbers and data. But in the same time, I carried one strong belief with me. There had to be a way to change, to challenge the status quo. So looking back, I would describe my journey like this, from pickaxe to the beat. I would say, with the help of a digital pickaxe, I could break down barriers and make my own career. And my career is very, very linked to BIM. What is BIM? It's a difficult concept, but stands for Building Information Modeling or Management. So it's a very innovative, or at least it was when I started, approach to manage our world, our construction world. So imagine you go on a site and you don't have anymore any paper, everything is centralized on your laptop, and there is no loss of information. The latest information is always available for everyone. You can spare a lot of money and time and bring all the different teams together and collaborate in a very efficient way. BIM plays a central role in my journey. I started working for architectural bureaus, even if I am an engineer and also an architect, in a market that was already very IT saturated. I quickly understood that if I wanted to grow, I had to look elsewhere, to specialize, not to compete in overcrowded spaces, even if I like to be competitive. But I chose infrastructure, first and foremost as an engineer, and almost unexpectedly, a second opportunity emerged. That's what I said you, this new methodology. At the time, I didn't know I was becoming a BIM advocate. I couldn't foresee how this new technology could evolve, because it was really something new. We were really, you couldn't count people using BIM in Italy at that time. And I couldn't even know that it could become the turning point of my career, especially when applied to something as complex and unconventional as infrastructure. Choosing a very specific one was really the key to my career. Even less could I imagine that this path will lead me into one of the most niche fields of all, the tunnels, often submerged, hidden, and highly specialized. What seemed like a lateral move turned out to be my differentiation. Technology didn't just change the way I was working, it changed where I belonged and what leadership could look like in a very traditionally closed industry. So I didn't change direction to fit in. I specialized to stand out, and technology made that possible. building information modeling, building information managing. In this journey, that was a really exponential one, I had the three main sparks. The first spark was information. The third one is about people, and the third one is about the impact that can go beyond the technical aspects. So the first spark is information, like I said. When you work with data every day, you eventually realize that data alone is not enough. Only when data becomes information does it gain meaning, and only then it can support a decision. So information is central in BIM. Like I said, this BIM information model is a very specific part, and that was the first spark. That's when I understood I was not just building infrastructure. We were building a new language, a universal one, something that everyone can speak without any link to gender or any bias. When data becomes a language, the industry changes. And when the industry changes, who gets to participate changes too. Because data has no gender, no accent, no bias. And in a data-driven system, value becomes visible for everyone. Competence becomes measurable, even if you are a woman in a male-dominated world. And suddenly, what happens? People who were previously invisible can finally emerge. So the second spark was people. At that moment, I was already a mentor, a mother, a guide. The people around me started calling me leader, but I hadn't changed my title. I hadn't changed my role, and I was creating impact. So when people started to call me leader, that's the moment I realized that the biggest challenge in our industry are not just technical, they're human. I already knew it, but suddenly it became so clear in my mind. Leadership is not just the title, but it's really the impact that you make. And my mindset at that time was really switching to people aspect. At that time, then my head was not just anymore filled by numbers, but also by people. So I started thinking really deeply to my journey, to diversity, to collaboration, and to integration. And I started observing more closely the dynamics around me. Meetings where I was the only woman in the room, decisions made without certain voices. They were missing. I was always like, where are the other women? But I found my voice and improved my self-confidence and preparation and communication skills. And I understood something crucial. You have to find your voice. And if you are empathetic, you can also help other people find their voice. And empathy is not a soft skill, it's an invisible infrastructure, to come back to my metaphor about tunnels, that holds teams together. And engineering and empathy are not opposites, they are allies to break the glass ceiling for our colleagues who are not having a voice in the story. So with engineering and empathy, I found my voice in these rooms where I was the only woman, and across teams. I could make space also for other women. The third spark was then a consequence of the action that I was making towards involving other colleagues to give them a voice. So it's about a recognition, one that went far beyond the technical domain. So I was acknowledged by Elle magazine as best woman in technology, and was a very pivotal moment, not because of the title itself, but because it remarked something much larger. It told me that my impact had traveled beyond engineering, beyond infrastructure, and into the broader conversation of society. Through technology, I'd reached an audience far wider than my industry. So I found a voice in a space where technical expertise meets cultural influence, and where leaders is measured not only by what we build, but by who we empower. So this recognition was crucial because it confirmed something fundamental for our industry. Even people outside engineering can understand the value of the change we can drive. And it became clear that the impact we are creating is not confined to data, models, or infrastructure projects, but really goes beyond our limits. And it can resonate with everyday people. It raises awareness. It challenges perceptions we have. And it opens doors for women in places where they were not always expected to lead. That moment reinforced my belief that technology, when it's guided by purpose, becomes a bridge between industries and society, between expertise and empathy, and between innovation and inclusion. And as leaders, that's the responsibility we carry to ensure that the impact of our work extends far beyond the boundaries of our field. Okay, this is me after 3 hours of makeup, adjusting, and very fancy clothes. But that's me. This achievement, like I said, is a proof that of what we as women we can reach, and we can really humanize concrete. So the story proves is just an excuse to tell that, but it's a proof that we can build the cities of tomorrow with advanced algorithms without losing our soul. We can embody a new form of leadership, combining technical expertise and emotional intelligence to create lasting, sustainable, and feasible outcomes. So, like I said, that's just the starting point. At some point, I stopped looking only at my own story, even if in a case I was already a mentor, so really already taking care about my group at work and so on. But I started seeing a pattern connecting all the different women and people who have, generally speaking, let's say on a broader view, less opportunities to have a voice in this story. So the same technologies we use to create, for example, digital twins for infrastructures can allow us to anticipate problems before they become failures. The same applies to our organizations. If we have inclusive leadership, we can prevent talent waste before it happens, for example. And the real paradigm shift is not from drawings to digital twins, so how the technology is advancing, but it's from control to collaboration, where technology can become the greatest equalizer our industry has ever seen, but only if it changes who is allowed to participate. Now, I want to pause for a moment. What happens in most cases? Good systems without actions can remain just a good story. So the real question becomes, what can we do today for our future steps? Both if we are leaders, both as a company or someone who, from the perspective of someone who wants to grow in this industry. So change doesn't start with a tool, it starts with a vision. And that's why I made the comment to the previous speaker. It was really resonating also with my presentation and the vision. A vision that's intentional, one that combines inclusive policies, digital processes from the other side, and a clear commitment to valuing female leadership. Because inclusion doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. If we want inclusive leadership, we need to invest differently, invest in leadership pipelines, increase the presence of women, not just in operational roles, but in decision-making positions. It's really also important that we invest in flexibility, like smart working also, especially for mothers. I have 2 kids, and I can tell that was really essential for my career to have the possibility to have a flexible work. Of course, agile organizations, we can say so many things because talent doesn't disappear. It becomes unavailable when systems are too rigid. And we have, of course, to invest in our culture. Culture is what people do when no policy is watching. And we really have to have a strong culture of change and of inclusion. And if you're just a junior, you're growing in this industry, if you're building your career in a hard sector like infrastructures, growth requires at least two things. Of course, the solid technical competence, that's something that's unquestionable. But the spark that you will have in your path will come only if you have the courage to position yourself. So you have to learn from role models, train continuously, be curious and be brave, and choose organizations, if you work for a company, that don't just talk about diversity, but actively protect and grow it. There are also skills that are not written in job descriptions, but can determine careers. Of course, you have to master the industry, the language of your industry. Can be a technical language, can be an informational language, the universal language I was speaking about before. But in any case, you have to be assertive and clear on your skills. Very crucial, if you lead a team, it's also about managing conflicts with facts and not with an emotion, and disarming bias with competence, of course. Networking is essential. It's not just random networking, but it's really strategic networking. That's something that I learned from a mentor. Really try to be focused on the key persons that can help you in this path, and can be mentors, can be sponsors. Mentors, let's say, can open perspectives, and sponsors open doors. So be careful in how you make the next move. Also, join associations can be really helpful. Share experiences and make opportunities, take opportunities when visible. Visibility is also essential. It's not vanity. It's a responsibility, because if you share your success, you write technical articles, you speak at panels, you propose projects, you will then become an expert that can be followed also from other persons, and let also other persons grow in the industry. And you will not just a contributor, but a really reference person for the other growing persons. If you are already a leader, your responsibility, of course, is even bigger. You have to be a mentor, or better, be a sponsor. Listen not only to what is said, but also to what is not being said. That's even more important. To create spaces, give the voices to people like the only woman in the room, and make sure that no one grows alone. Because when the systems can change, individual actions can accelerate them. That's really essential. So we can democratize the construction site. We can also democratize the leadership. And it's not said that if it's a very difficult sector like infrastructure, it's more difficult. It can be a bit more challenging, but then can give you even biggest boost to improve your skills, to grow, and to find your voice in this space. We are moving toward automated sites, collaborative robotics, also for tunnels industry, artificial intelligence. But the greatest risk is not technological. It's using the new tools to reproduce old biases. That's really something that we have to avoid. So that's why we need a culture behind this story. Technology can be a great equalizer, but only if we choose to use in that way, because it can amplify intentions, and if the intentions are not really structured, can make more damages. So today, the mobility industry is facing a triple challenge. First, a growing shortage of diverse talent. Second, the urgent need for decarbonization. Third, the responsibility of managing aging and obsolete infrastructure. And as a summary, it's a technical change of paradigm that's needed, but also a cultural change, mostly important. And traditional methods are no longer enough to respond to this complexity. Incremental improvement improvements will not solve systemic challenges. What the sector truly needs is a digital push, one that goes hand in hand with a cultural shift. Digital technologies allow us to work in a different way. They shift the focus from physical presence to the competence, from hierarchy to the collaboration, from exclusion to access, like I said. In doing so, they can lower barriers, not only the technical ones, but also the social and the cultural ones. This is why technology becomes a powerful equalizer. It enables the new voices to emerge, attract the talents, we then to understand how to maintain them in our structure, and create spaces for more inclusive leadership. At the same time, digital transformation is essential to build a sustainable future. Data-driven decisions, smarter asset management, and integrated digital workflows are the key to reduce carbon impact and extending the life of our infrastructures. But this transformation is not just about the system and tools. It's about people. It's about who gets to participate, who gets to lead, and who we are building this future for. As leaders, our responsibility goes beyond delivering projects. We are not just digging tunnels and building the tunnels. We are opening pathways for those who will follow. That's essential to know. So the hardest tunnel to dig, in my experience, is not under a mountain or under a river. It's the one that runs through the prejudice of a traditional industry. Technology is our digital pickaxe to break down these barriers. And we are not just building infrastructure, we are deciding who gets a voice in the future. So I started my career building things no one could see. Tunnels, invisible systems. Today, I know that the most important structures are still the invisible ones, but they are trust, access, and belonging. Technology gave me the tool, this pickaxe, and data with no genders, but inclusion gave me a voice. And leadership, the real one, the real leadership begins the moment we use our tools to make space for others to rise. Thanks. If this talk opened something for you, let's not close it here. Let's make this conversation grow. You can reach me through LinkedIn or just raise your hand. I'm glad to answer your question.